In this Valentine's Day episode, we've asked our guests how love shows up differently now that they're sober. Not just in romantic relationships, but also in relationships with family and friends, and perhaps most importantly, how love shows up in their relationship with themselves. When we stop drinking alcohol, we start showing up differently in our lives. We start seeing that how we showed and accepted love wasn't healthy, and it often wasn't realistic. Learning how to love ourselves so we can share that love with others is one of the most fulfilling aspects of living a sober life. Listen as we chat with Sarah, Jane, and Will about love and relationships in recovery.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and that recovery isn't just rewarding, but it's also a lot of fun. We're your hosts, Julie and Steve. Listen as we get together with friends to shed light on the hard things, talk about the other side of addiction, and how we create a life so full there's no space left for alcohol.
Be sure to visit our website at throughtheglassrecovery.com for a full searchable list of over 120 podcast episodes. You'll find a conversation about any challenge you're facing in recovery to offer some support, encouragement, and wisdom from others who have been in your shoes. And if you find a topic we haven't covered, make sure to send us an email and we'll add it to our list of future episodes.
Hello and welcome. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm a little bit early, but this is the Valentine's episode. We are going to talk all about love and what that means in recovery today. So we've got a couple of fantastic people with us today. Really excited for this conversation. First, we're going to have Will introduce himself. He's back for another time.
Yes, I am back for another time. I'm double dipping. So my name is Will. I run a podcast, a sober podcast as well, called the Willpower Podcast. So I'm all about recovery. A little bit backstory on me, if you don't know anything yet. I am a 2-time transplant patient. I had severe alcohol addiction throughout my entire 30s and some of my 20s, honestly, and it spiraled out of control in my mid 30s. So I've been a teacher my whole life, and I was completely lost. I was lost. I was completely lost as a person. I gave up on life, and the throes of alcohol took me in, and it tried to kill me. So I got to 2 weeks of life left. That's what the doctors told me if I didn't get an emergency liver transplant, which then happened. Thank God. And then subsequently, I had a kidney transplant right after that too. That's how much I was drinking, and there were complications because of that too. But yeah, I can go on and on. But here I am today. So happy to be here. So blessed to still be alive, and I'm just very thankful to be on the show today and to talk about love.
yeah, we're really happy to have you. And for our listeners, you guys can check out Will's podcast on YouTube and actually listen to his story. So thank you for sharing what you did. And obviously, there's so much more to that story. So
It's a long story. Yeah.
make sure you guys check that out as well. And we'll have some links in the show notes for you. And then we also have with us today Sarah Jane. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good.
Okay. So I'm Sarah Jane. I'm 49. Um, I was a binge drinker. I wasn't an everyday drinker or drug user, but I was a binger. And I ended up getting sober through working the steps with Cocaine Anonymous. I'm coming up to 4 years sober. I'm also a energy and sound healer. So that is my main job. And yeah, I help people with sobriety, with sponsoring them, taking them through the book, and really helping them on a journey of healing on a deeper level. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. Just trying to skim it over a little bit, but yeah, that's a little bit. There's that.
4 years. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Yep.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to meet you and have you here with us.
Yeah, I'm just coming up on 2. I meant to say that. I'm coming up on 2 on January 27th, right this month. So that'll be exciting.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you both so much for being here. So, for our topic today, love is one of the most complex emotions that we feel as humans. It comes with a lot of really big feelings and sometimes confusion, especially once we get sober and have to show up more intentionally in our relationships. So, how has your understanding of love developed throughout your recovery? What are some challenges that it's brought forth, and how have you worked through them?
Yeah. Well, do you mind if I go first? I'll just jump into it.
Jump in.
All right. So
The
love for me is
water's
a big
cold.
one. Yeah, love for me is a big one. That's why I was excited to come on today. This topic really resonates with me because I practice a lot of, not self-love, actually self-hate. I spent years promoting self-hate to myself and to others. I hated who I was, and it was really difficult for me to find the self-love that I knew I deserved, and I knew that was it within me. And ever since I've been sober and I woke up from the transplant and I said I swore up alcohol forever, it's been a long process of learning that self-love, but with practice and tips and tools that you can use to get there, there's been nothing more meaningful in my life than to actually finally can say with full vulnerability that I like myself again, and that takes a lot of courage to say that, and I'm just happy that I finally am working the steps to get there.
Definitely. If I were to ask you, what's like the one thing that has helped you more than anything else as far as starting to love yourself again?
It started with an appreciation notebook, as weird as that sounds. I honestly, genuinely show appreciation now, from like a very authentic perspective. So I journal every morning. I say the things that I'm thankful for every morning, and I write it down in my little journal here. It's a sobriety journal, and I practice gratefulness to everything, to people, to the nature, to everything in my life. I'm grateful for now that I have a second chance at life. So being able to practice gratitude is immensely important to me, and that's how I'm growing as a person.
Awesome. Awesome. Great
Yeah,
answer.
thanks.
Cool. What about you, Sarah Jane? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think when you first get sober, obviously, the main thing where your feelings come back like strong. And you really do go through a stage of really kind of deeply getting to know like who you are without using drugs or drink to cover up those emotions. Um, and you really kind of, I think it's all about retraining how you think about yourself. Instead of like the negative thoughts like bombarding you, you have to turn that into a positive thought with loving yourself. I really found mirror talk really helpful. So in the morning, I would talk to myself in the mirror. It starts off a little bit weird, first of all, telling yourself that you love yourself and telling yourself lovely things. I would just tell myself things as if, say, I was having a bit of a crappy day or a crappy morning. I didn't feel great. I would talk to myself as if I would talk to one of my friends or one of my children. And it really kind of was quite easy for me to get into that practice every morning. I find myself doing it now. I do it in the mirror. Sometimes I just do it in my head to myself. And for me, I find meditation like really helps me to get deeper into my emotions and my feelings of how I love myself. And really doing an amends to myself to anything that's kind of happened in the past that's kind of quite deep or hurtful, and just really doing an amends to myself, because that's really important because I need to love myself and I need to let that stuff go because otherwise it's just heavy, we're just carrying it all the time. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think finding that deep connection within yourself is sometimes it can be difficult for some people to love themselves. Um, yeah, sorry, I've had a little bit of a perimenopausal brain fart then.
So, I mean, we have the relationship with ourselves that we know that, I mean, drinking, it's not a form of self-love. I mean, if it starts out feeling that way, it ends up not being that way. It's more like a form of self-hate. So when you flip that around and you start learning how to love yourself, that changes how you want to receive that and want and how you're gonna give that to others. Your whole perception of what that looks like to you is gonna change, so it's gonna change when you get outside of yourself and we start actually interacting with others. We all use this word, "I love you." It's all a term that we use. When you say that now, what's different about it?
To others, when I say it to others,
Yeah.
or to my,
There's the part about yourself, but when you say it now to others, I know for me, when it comes to even in passing, I'm not sure how to communicate it now. You know, people say, "I love you," and they throw it around willy-nilly, and I'm like, "I don't wanna throw that around willy-nilly," or whatever that means, because it has, like, a deeper, more truer, less surface, like, I can go down this list of stuff that it doesn't mean anymore.
Mhm.
So, how has that changed? Like, what does it look like now as opposed to what it looked like for Will almost 2 years ago, Sarah Jane almost 4 years ago? Like, how has that switched?
for me, it just feels more when you say it now. You can feel it more in your heart area when you're telling someone you love them. Like, my kids, or family and things like that, For me, I went through a divorce while being sober, finding that and actually realizing that my love had changed while getting sober for my ex-husband and realizing, it was that I needed to love myself more to understand as well that my love for him had changed on a completely different level that I didn't even really see coming, you know. I could just walk around with this feeling of love all the time now. It's really deep. And not just to love people, places, things, occasions, smells, like, just everything. Like, I love getting in bed at night and pulling up my D and going to sleep. Like, that's my, like, most, the word I use favorite is quite a lot. It's probably not even a word, but I do use it quite a lot now. But that is my favorite place to be. I love my bed.
If you like to make up words, you are my person. I make up words all the time.
And, like, because I know I'm going to bed to sleep properly and not to go to bed, pass out in a mess, waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for water, or not sleeping because I've been taking cocaine. I'm actually going to bed because I love to go to bed, sleep.
Yeah. Love. This is a big part that I definitely wanted to bring up on this episode was, like my whole relationship with my wife. So I met her in 2016. And I wasn't drinking very heavily at that point just because I wanted to meet someone new and I wanted to date and I got myself healthy and everything like that. But soon after that relationship blossomed. 6 months went by, or I think 6 months to a year went by, and then I noticed, then I became old Will again, and I put on weight, and then I started my drinking increased because I still wasn't practicing self love. I didn't like who I was. I was disappointed with everything, and I could never search out those little sparks of joy, even though they were surrounding me. But I wasn't appreciative of them because I was in the depths of alcoholism. But practicing that self-love with my wife now, with my partner who stood by my side, through every single thing that I put her through, it's just remarkable that I got so lucky. And the thing about, where our relationship is now, which is so remarkable, is that now with the clarity of having a sober mind, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly working on our relationship, whereas in the past it was just constantly working on me, constantly working on me. Now we have this opportunity because of the sobriety that we're on. My wife, by the way, she never had a problem with alcohol or anything like that. She just chose. That's like the angel that she is. She chose to go sober with me when I woke up from the transplant, which was just an amazing thing that she did. That's just who she is. But now we are genuinely and authentically working on our relationship in the most beautiful way that there is. Yeah, it's not always beautiful, but that we at least are making the effort now. Whereas in the past, when you're under the influence of whatever, alcohol for me, you're not present, you're not mindful, you're not there, right? And how can a relationship be balanced if one person's not even emotionally and there presently? They're just not there. So how can that person grow? And that's just one of the biggest blessings and the benefits of going sober is can finally work on your relationships in the most meaningful capacity that there is.
Yeah, I mean, like, emotional availability is absolutely necessary from both people in a relationship in order for the relationship to actually thrive and be successful and grow and all of that. And we are literally incapable of being emotionally available if we're drinking. Like, no matter how much you're drinking, I think as soon as you have a drink, everything shuts off emotionally and we can't show up in those relationships in a valid way. When I was thinking about this topic earlier, so for me, I remember going back to my parents telling me, "We love you unconditionally." I remember my mom explaining to me what the word unconditional meant. And she was telling me I must have been 5 or 6 years old, right? And we had learned about the term unconditional love at church. And so my mom was explaining to me that parents love their children unconditionally. No matter what you do, we still love you. And, looking back, like, my parents were fantastic. They did everything that they could, but I still got all my little messages, little Julie took certain things in here and there, and somewhere along the line, I equated the love with approval. So I felt loved by my parents if I was doing things that they approved of. I felt loved by my teachers if I was doing things that they approved of, if I was getting good grades, if I was behaving well, right? And then you carry that into the teenage years, and then you carry that into marriage. And my whole marriage has been hustle for my husband's approval. Do the things he wants me to do so that I feel like he loves me. And I did not understand. Like, I couldn't have explained this. Like, I couldn't have put words to this 3 years ago that that's what I thought that love was. It was hustling and working and achieving to be somebody that deserves approval because approval means love. Um, and to
Approval was the condition.
Yeah, approval was the condition. And I mean, if you were to ask my parents, they would be like, absolutely not. We loved you no matter what. But for me, and like, words of affirmation is my love language, right? So my parents would say, you did so good. You got such good grades, or you worked so hard, or you're so smart, or whatever the words were. And I was like, they love me. And that's what made me feel loved. So, I mean, if you were to ask my parents, they would tell you they love me no matter what. But as a little girl and as a teenager, that's not what that felt like. So, I don't know, it's been a fascinating journey to stop hustling for approval and yet still believe that I am worthy of love. I can do things other people don't agree with because they feel like they're in alignment with me and my values, and that's okay. I'm still worthy of love. They can still love me, and if they don't, that's okay because my whole life doesn't involve approval anymore. And that was a massive transformation for me because I lived for the approval of other people. My approval of myself didn't matter, but theirs did.
So, when I'm listening to you, if you didn't get that approval, or say did something that would have garnered some disapproval or some disappointment, did you then think or fear that the love would then be taken away,
For sure.
right? Like,
Definitely.
so, because I can feel that when you're talking about it. There's the part where you almost associate doing good with being loved and doing bad with it's like almost an emotional detachment from it, right? Like if I am punished, I am also going to be emotionally punished as well in the relationship, and then I have to work to repair it.
Yeah. Huh. And light bulbs go off for Julie.
Drop it. Knowledge bombs right there.
I love that. No, yeah, no, that's spot on, I think.
Right. Well, I'm speaking from my own experience because that's how I'm trying to re-explain exactly what you just said in my mind, where if that emotional attachment felt like, and now I'm light bulbing, if that emotional attachment was pulled away, then I felt responsible for the repairing of it.
Which means
And
hustle to get the approval to make it better.
which right, and like it comes all the way back around, and I could just see that I'm looking at it from the emotion, like the anxious attachment style. I'm now afraid of pushing someone away far enough that it's going to make me feel like I'm going to lose the love or affection. And in which case, then I will continue to abandon myself so that doesn't distance. And because I don't have the self-love and I don't have that self-confidence, I'm going to begin to chase or pull at whatever
Yeah.
person so I can feel that affection again. Like I'm going to find a way. And that comes from way back then.
Right.
Yeah,
All the childhood messaging, I think, defines how we view love as adults until we start undoing all of that messaging and rewriting what love means to us now. We all have different experiences. We're all going to have different messaging. Maybe yours wasn't approval. Maybe it was, whatever. But I think that that's probably where all of our definitions of love come from is childhood. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've done enough therapy in my life to come to that conclusion as well. Love for me was achievements like you, Julie, and food, believe it or not. My mother's a great Italian cook, but she was also very stern, very firm, very unflexible with anything. So you didn't want to disappoint her, and things like that. But she would she would reward all four boys of us with food and things like that. So now I associate like love with food, which can be a big issue. That's why I have to be very mindful of what I'm putting in my body. But yeah, anyways, yeah, but yes, I totally agree with what you're saying, how it does stem from childhood, a lot of these things, and that's where a lot of substance abuse issues stem from as well, right? It's from your childhood, it's also very important to do the work to figure out what those issues were and then why were you drinking in the first place, and getting to those core foundational elements of your personality, and because once you do encounter those elements of your personality and you figure that you get the diamonds out of the ground, you can start looking at it with like an objective lens of being like, well, I don't have to be like that person anymore. I can work on myself in an evolving, beautiful way, and that'll eventually lead to my happiness and peace and in prosperity and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was very similar, same sort of thing. I think most of us are, and also seeing our parents, like relationships, how they loved each other, in what way, did they show love to each other. Um, I think it definitely gives us like a point when we grow up to, and when we turn into adults, how we're going to be with our different relationships, how we're going to be with our children. Um, Most of the time, like my mum was very over loving, but then she would be quite controlling in other ways as well. I did a lot of dance and stuff like that, and if I didn't do my best, it would be, I could tell by her energy and how she was with me that she was disappointed and I wasn't doing very well, and then that would make me feel bad. Um, yeah, so it's a vicious circle, but I find when you do stop drinking and doing other things, you can start getting to the root of all those issues and where it's coming from, and that's where the hard work comes in, and the kind of the beauty and the magical you start understanding all that stuff within you, and it's beautiful. Yeah, it's amazing when you get there.
You talk.
I feel like
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you
Oh,
go.
I feel like alcohol for me especially was like the perfect drug, or the worst but perfect drug, because I didn't love myself enough. I wasn't willing to just be me. You know, I hated who I was in my own skin. So with alcohol, well, how it lowers your inhibitions and it lowers your it makes you a little more, you know, you could say what you want on your mind. I guess like that was like my personality, I guess, was kind of coming out at the beginning of it, not later in the beginning. Like it's, you know, when it was kind of still fun. But I noticed that like that's why alcohol, I liked it so much, just because I could live with myself when I wasn't thinking about, you know, how much I hated myself, if that makes any sense.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of
Yeah.
why I drank, was how much I hated myself.
Yeah.
You know, say, Steve?
I didn't even know I hated myself. Like, I don't know that I had the self-awareness at that time to say that that's what that was. Like, I don't know that I could have put words to it. I felt bad, I was depressed, I was all of these things. Those words didn't like exist in my mind. I didn't really have that amount of self-awareness to come to any of those conclusions. Things just sucked, and I blamed things on other people. Bringing this back into the love conversation, I used to be a yes man. And Julie talked like about approval and stuff like that. The way I did that was being the yes man. I would argue every once in a while, but I wouldn't argue enough to ever hold a true to any of my beliefs. I would argue long enough to get uncomfortable enough to just agree. Uh,
Hmm.
because I feared losing the sense of belonging. I feared losing a sense of fitting in. I feared all of that, even in my relationships. But I was a yes man, and to me, saying yes was giving love. Like that was what I was supposed to do. As long as I continued to say yes and give those things, then that was one of the versions of showing that I appreciated you and that I cared for you and that I had these emotions for that person, was to show up and do those things. So if I was asked, I would try and complete the task. The longer my drinking went, the less good I got at completing those tasks. The better I got at putting those off. But that was kind of what my version was, right? Like, and then I would be rewarded with like a thank you or a nice job or kind of very similar to what Julie was saying, but di- I think different in some aspects, but not too different. You're still being, love was the reward,
Mm. Well,
right?
on the flip side of that, it's like give everything I have to other people. That's going to prove to them how much I love them, right? Which is zero boundaries and just dumping everything I have into every person that I want to love me. Um, and like the whole idea of boundaries actually are love. That was so hard for me to wrap my head around.
Well, you tried to, worthiness was love, right?
Yeah,
If you
for
try
sure.
like make yourself work toward the worthiness of it, if I accomplished enough, then I would be worthy of love, affection.
Yeah.
You know, they were tied together.
I a huge um a huge component of my sobriety and my self-love that I practice now is, and it still is very difficult to come to grips with, was just being able to forgive myself from all my past mistakes, because that's a difficult one when you spend 10 years of your life, which was like the prime of my life, drunk. That's a big regret, right? So how does one forgive themselves after such a big part chunk of your life? Like, how do you do that, right? What does that look like? And it looks different for everyone, right? But it it is possible with like doing, you know, meditation, doing, expressing gratitude, going, telling, definitely, you know, I'm not the biggest 12-step guy, but the step that I really could resonate with was definitely making amends to those in your past, and just saying sorry, and just hoping they forgive you. And if they don't, then that's okay, you know. But making amends with my own past, you know, all those long nights of drinking, all those long nights of disappointing my wife or not showing up or being too drunk for the function or whatever, you know, whatever circumstance I put people through. you have to, as difficult as it is to replay the tape, it's important to remember them and to forgive yourself, because you can't, unless you forgive yourself at some capacity, you're never going to move on. You're never going to get better. You're never going to evolve to the person that you eventually can be. Right.
I don't think if you can't find a way to start forgiving yourself, you're never going to find a way to actually give the love
That is that.
that you need for you to someone else.
Yeah.
Like the more I come to learn about self-love and then what that means to me, and then being able to show up and give that in a way that's functional, in a way that is unconditional,
Mhm.
is to allow freedom in the space for someone else to do as they see fit for them in whatever moment that is, and I can still show up for me at the same time. And when that exists and I'm still loving myself, then I can give all of the extra that's there to the other person that might be in need. You know what I mean? Let's say in a relationship. But there's the level of okayness with myself now that I feel needs to exist for me to show up in a healthy way.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And sorry, Julie, and I didn't mean that from like, oh, I forgive myself. Like, don't do it like a flippant way, right? You have to actually, mean it. You have to actually do the work to get to that point, and which is very difficult work, but also very powerful and and the most meaningful work you can do is when you do it, truly, honestly.
right. I'm gonna share. So my husband is doing like some coaching, right? He doesn't have a drinking problem. This isn't related to alcohol at all, but he's doing this coaching program, and the topic for that particular session was self-love, and it's like a group thing, whatever. And it was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Do you feel like you love yourself? And he was like, I mean, in some ways. It's like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, there's some things that I do really well, but then there's other things that I still need to work on. And I was like, a light bulb went off for me because I think that's how most people operate. It's, I love the good parts about me, but the bad parts about me, I don't love. I have to fix them first. And the whole concept of self love is you love your whole self with your flaws, with your strengths, with all of it. And I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting because I think probably the majority of people operate on that level where it's, I love the good parts, but all these things over here that are my weak spots, I can't love those. They don't deserve love. Right. And I
Yeah.
think that the most powerful thing we can do when it comes to self-love is look at those weak spots and make friends with them. Because none of us are ever going to be strong in every aspect of ourselves, right? That the whole character flaws thing, they're gonna exist. And we have to learn to love ourselves with
Yeah.
all of it.
You know what's funny too? That the older I get, the more I realize that a lot of people are going through their days and they're not even realizing like the joyful sparks of joy moments that are that they're going through, because say like 9 things that were wonderful. Like you went to work, someone held the door for you. You went to get a coffee and someone offered you theirs instead, right? And you're like, oh, you make note of it or whatever, and that was nice. But then all of a sudden, like your boss yells at you at like 2 p.m. about how you like parked your car in the wrong spot or whatever. And then all of a sudden that's the negative thing is what we gravitate towards. Whereas when you had 9 different blessings, but that one little stupid one for some reason is now stuck in your head. And I feel like that's very similar to how we treat our sobriety as well, if that makes any sense too.
It's negativity bias. It's like a whole psychological study where we focus on the one negative thing and ignore all the positive things. We do that about ourselves too, right? So like I have the whatever one negative thing about myself and I focus on that and then I ignore all of the positives. And I think we do that in our relationships. So if somebody, even with my daughter, for instance, things can be going really pretty well. She's 17. If things are going pretty well, it's miraculous, right? But then one bad thing happens and I'm like, I have failed as a parent. Everything sucks. This is awful, blah, And we just do that naturally as humans. We gravitate towards the negative, and that absolutely affects how we show up in our relationships and for ourselves.
So even when people relapse, like think about it. Say when people say like, "Oh, I've relapsed. I can't believe this." Like I have so much shame. It's like, okay, like you relapsed, right? How many days before did it take to relapse? One guy told me like 4 years. I'm like, so you're telling me 365 times 4 minus 1, like where's the discrepancy there? Like that you should be proud of yourself. Like, look how far you got, like that's 99.999% more longer than most people. And now you just make sure that you just get up the next morning and do what you did those initial 4 years before that. That's all it takes. Is when people put that self-hate on themselves, and the next morning is you're not gonna get any better from that. You have to just be like, okay, take it. This was my journey right now, and I messed up. But don't beat yourself up about it, because you're not gonna go anywhere with that.
Right. Sarah Jane, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say a majority of the people that come see me for either energy healing or the group sound healing sessions and stuff that I do, it is the main point is to do with people just not liking themselves and struggling with their emotions about, how are they going to like have these relationships that's coming up and all that sort of stuff. It's such a beautiful way for people to be held in a safe space to really connect with themselves with the feelings that are coming up. Um, yeah, the loving of themselves is so important. I mean, for myself, I went through a massive stage, when I was younger with anorexia and bulimia, because I really didn't like how I looked. And it's only through getting sober and like that last year that I've had huge light bulb moments with myself of really literally loving exactly. I'm made exactly as the creator, however we name that. This is exactly how I'm supposed to be made, And as you were saying earlier, it's so important to talk lovingly to yourself about the parts that you might not like about yourself, and then eventually, you just love all of that. You love all of that, and all your quirks and all the little things that you know, that you may not find the greatest in one way or another, and also the amount of people that some people fall away, and that's okay. That's okay now. Whereas old me would have been like, "Oh my God, what have I done wrong? It's me, it's my fault." Now I'm like, "That's okay. That's okay." And then weirdly enough, other people start coming in that are actually more on your vibrational level, and it is just amazing. Like, life is really amazing now, you know? Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, the connections are so much more genuine with people, when you go sober and you're surrounded with that frequency. I think you're almost referencing, it's like that energy. I'm sorry, my dog. Uh, and she's, I have a puppy. I'm sorry.
You so kids, puppies, we have it all in the background, and it's great.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. um, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Thank you, Leela. Oh man, sorry.
So, I remember a conversation and I'm not exactly sure where this stemmed from, but Julie, you and I have talked about this, and I think you have a way better story about it than I do, but coming at a place from self-love than self-hatred, and trying to accomplish things, whether it's it's a weight loss, whether it's coming at a relationship, whether it's coming at any kind of task that you want to try and do for the betterment of yourself.
Mhm.
Do you want to go ahead, or do you want me to try?
No, I can kind of share a little bit. I think at some point I realized that any change that I tried to make in myself, any way that I tried to improve myself or whatever, whether that was sobriety, whether that was related to exercise and weight loss and diet and or whatever it was, for so many years I came at it from a place of shame. So I would come at my sobriety from this place of, I am such a failure. I am such a loser. What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I stop drinking? I'm so weak, blah, blah, whatever. Like, it was horrible, the things that I said to myself. And then I would try to use those words to motivate me to stay sober. And I was absolutely trying to make a positive change with shame. And it turns out you're never going to make lasting change with shame. You make lasting change with love. It's, I love myself enough that I'm going to do this thing because I deserve that. It's not, I'm a horrible mother and my family deserves better, so God damn it, I'm going to quit drinking. It's, it's the love. It's the, I deserve this. I am worthy of a good life. And this is the step that I need to take to create this life that I am worthy of, that I do want to be living. And that was kind of a huge revelation for me in a lot of different ways, not even just related to sobriety, but anytime we want to do, even if you like want to make your bed every morning, you don't start out by being like, oh my God, I'm such a lazy slob. Why can't I just get my shit together so I can go do this? It's, I deserve to go to bed at night in a bed that was made and that is neat and fresh, that feels good. Like it's so simple, but it's just the flip from shame to love that allows us to really make those changes. And that's when those changes really stick.
Yeah. Here's a good little New Year's resolution tip for you that I've been practicing that's been working wonders. I'm not kidding. So listen closely. So I read somewhere that if it only takes 5 minutes to do, whether that be empty the dishwasher, make the bed, clean the kids, whatever, clean their laundry, well, I don't know, whatever. If it takes 5 minutes to do, notice that, come to that realization that it's only 5-minute task, go do it. And then you'll start noticing that, it's annoying at first, but you start noticing a pattern, like your life just gets a little cleaner, there's a little more organized, and with organization comes calmness, and with calmness comes self-reflection, and with self-reflection comes, growth. So if it takes 5 minutes, go do it. That's just a little New Year's resolution that hopefully people stick to, because it's been working absolute wonders for me. Like, everything's a lot more organized. My bed's made. Everything's beautiful. I love it.
Fantastic.
It's amazing what happens when you decide not to do that 5-minute task because you feel like you don't have the time,
Compounds.
and then you carry it with you. Whether you know it or not, like, you put it away, but you carry it with you because the task isn't complete, right? The reward is when the task is complete. The reward, if you do it with that, you come at it with love like that, right? I deserve this. I am worthy of this. I am, this is going to be good for me. Then it's like giving yourself a little gift. I never used to do any of that. I'm going to wrap this up here, but like ending this on that note where love, like lasting change, and love is about evolving and changing and growing and doing this too. It's not sustainable under shame. It's not sustainable when we feel shame. So if we can come at it from a place of love, and sometimes we have to give it a weird, wonderful perspective. Sometimes, and there's a whole bunch of examples that you guys gave about self-love. You talked about like the gratitude, journaling in the morning. Like that is a form of self-love. It is teaching us. Our words are so important. You talked about mirror talk, Sarah Jane. As awkward, and as soon as you talked about mirror talk, I was like, oh my God, that would feel so weird. It's seriously, that's what I thought.
It's weird, but it's awesome. I started doing it. Just, you say, "Hey, Will, love you." You say, "I love you, I love you, love you," enough, and then all of a sudden you start laughing like halfway through because it's so weird, and like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? Did I lose my mind in sobriety? Like, what is this? No, it works. Like, if you just, it's a great way to start the day, because you really can't start a day on a bad note if you just keep telling yourself how much you appreciate yourself and how much you appreciate your life and everything around you. Yeah, it's a great little trip.
And I'm going to wrap that up with that great trick right there. So I want to say thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Will, for taking the time to join us here
Sure.
on this Valentine's Day episode, where I hope people can sit down and listen to four people talk about the different versions and what love means to them and what it used to mean to them and what it means to us now. So I want to say thank you, Will, and thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate you guys joining us tonight.
Been a pleasure. I love talking to you guys. Thank you.
Lovely, you're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
To our listeners, thanks for sharing this space with us. Please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes like the one we've got coming next week about dealing with anger once you get sober.